Okay, looks like we are in. Hi everybody, welcome to today's session of UPSC Buffet by Gallant IAS. So today we will be discussing the science and technology portion from the 2022 PYQ. So 2022 has got a lot of science and technology related PYQs compared to the 2020 or 2021. So that was a great shift in the direction that UPSC has taken, and a lot of technical questions has been asked. But don't worry, we'll be discussing about them in this current session, and most of them are still relevant in the upcoming examination. So I've added the relevant material and the current affair relevant to that. So stay tuned and learn all of that concept in this session itself. So again, welcome to the session. Let's get started. So first one, which of the following are built on top of open source digital platforms? Okay. You might have heard about open source digital platform. Even if you haven't heard about it, from the name itself, what does this mean? Open source digital platform, meaning that the source is open, or the source code is open. Open source meaning their source code is open. So which of the following are such platforms? What is the connection between Cowin, Arogya Setu and DigiLocker? These are all things owned by the government, owned as in developed by the government, and they are actually open for the public to use. We have heard about digital locker integration in various other applications. For example, if you are applying for any job or something, you can actually connect your DigiLocker with your privacy permission given. You can connect it. The same way Cowin is also based on that. Arogya Setu works on the same line. And Diksha is also a learning application which is open. So from the name itself, and if you have heard about, see, this is in 2022, Arogya Setu, Cowin were like the one of the most used applications back then for booking for information regarding, as well as taking bookings for immunization. Those what we take as protection against back then the COVID pandemic. So that's the thing. Vaccine delivery, disease vaccine booking, all of this were booked under Cowin, and vaccine certificates were issued under Cowin. Arogya Setu, same thing. DigiLocker, where we can actually store our data, whether it be our vehicle data or our personal educational data, and that has the value of the original data, original document itself, meaning that you don't have to worry much about that. This is especially useful if you're traveling a lot and you don't have to worry about your certificates getting lost. And this is one really good intervention, especially for those who are from the places where there is frequent disruption of public life because of disasters or things like that. Again, Diksha is also a learning platform. So all four are actually open source digital platforms. And still, if you don't know what are open source digital platforms, I'll tell you few information regarding them. It's worth noting, and it's very important in the upcoming years as well, because you might have heard about digital public goods. They are basically derived from this platform, open source digital platform, and digital public goods are very much endorsed by the during India's presidency in G20 in 2023. So this the global digital, the digital public goods derive their functionality from these open source digital platforms. So learn about that. So these open source digital platforms are softwares whose source code is publicly available, compared to any other closed source digital platform. For example, any application that you use, for example WhatsApp, the source code of WhatsApp is not open. Nobody can see it, nobody can legally see it unless and until WhatsApp decides to make it public. But they themselves have kept it closed and as a closed system, so that they can control everything what is going on inside it. And since that's basically an enterprise that is profit driven, they will be keeping it closed. The same way the operating systems like the Mac OS or the Microsoft, etc., are examples of closed source systems. So here in open source digital platforms, the source code is publicly available, so anybody can view, use and modify and share it. There is no limitations for that. This is the exact reason why Linux as an operating system is gaining popularity. You might have observed that many of the government platforms or government servers, government offices uses Linux instead of Windows. The reason is that Linux is an open source platform. No corporation owns Linux. Linux does have an office for that, but other than that, the open nature of Linux makes it easy to customize, and so the customized OS of Linux, whatever that is being used, whether in the public offices or your private uses, are your own only. So Linux cannot pull the plug over that and just stop your services altogether. It doesn't work like that. Linux is a distributed system, it is open, so we can customize it based on our use. This is exactly why there is a growing push within India as well as especially in Europe to use open source digital platforms for government related activities, whether it be data storage or operating systems in general. So you might have heard about Bharat Open Operating System, so BOS, which is an operating system developed by India based on Linux. This is primarily used in defense sector. Okay, so that's also an open source digital platform. You might think that having the source code publicly available makes something that is very much vulnerable to outside attacks, which is actually opposite the case, because since the source code is public, anybody can view and point out the bugs or breaches, potential vulnerabilities in that source code and easily fix it. So that's one way to address it. So they provide greater security through transparency, as well as they have got oversight of almost all the open developers. So that's one area. Wikipedia is also an open source digital platform. GitHub, you might have heard about it, used by programmers to push their codes and store their data. Then WordPress is also a digital platform, open source digital platform. Then Firefox is one such web browser which is open source. That's the biggest advantage of Mozilla Firefox. Okay, and this again is very important because UPSC can ask this question in prelims as well as in mains, especially in GS3 mains, regarding data privacy and data protection as well as data sovereignty. So why governments and institutions prefer them? That's also one thing you need to know. Of course, there will be lower cost because there is no licenses. You know that to legally run as Microsoft Windows OS, you need to have the license for that, and that should be renewed, and that is very expensive. Most of you might not have used the licensed version, but the thing is that to use it at a commercial scale or for any matter, you need to be having licenses, and those are really expensive. That's how these companies make money, basically. Then there is digital sovereignty, and you might have heard about the crash that occurred. Crash as in the stalling at Heathrow Airport that happened because of the Microsoft based OS that was that was based on the entire system. The flight data system got corrupted, and it isn't found out that whether or not it was a cyber security attack, but outage of that system occurred, and that was entirely based on the Microsoft. And this single thing can actually affect the economic and as well as logistical, and can bring our life, like the citizens' life, to a standstill, just like what has happened in Heathrow Airport in 2025, I guess. In 2025 itself it happened. So digital sovereignty is there. See, what if our entire system is based on something from USA, like Microsoft or Google, and due to our political differences, they are forced to pull the plug. What happens to our entire e-governance delivery system, our banking system, things like that? Everything can fall. So not depending on open source digital system and not depending on these closed source digital platforms, and depending on open source, can actually help us preserve our digital sovereignty and local innovation. This can actually provide for local innovation because extreme levels of customization is possible. If you have used Linux, you know that there are a lot of variations of Linux. You yourself can actually customize the entire OS. And there is security through transparency. These are the basic advantages of open source digital platform, and this is very relevant in current day and age, especially in regard with digital sovereignty, data privacy, data protection, as well as digital public infrastructure. And that's the next topic I'm going to discuss. Learn about this very clearly because UPSC will be asking directly and indirectly from this portion for prelims as well as mains, and you can write answers in mains to improve the cyber security infrastructure as well as the cyber infrastructure in India by incorporating open source digital platforms. So that's very important. And the examples are Arogya Setu, Cowin, DigiLocker, etc. And one more concept we need to be understanding is digital public goods. They are basically based on this open source digital platform is how you make it. What you make is called a digital public good. So digital public goods use the technology of open source digital platform, and they make digital tools that are openly accessible, reusable, and built for public benefit. So just like building roads in a digital form, the government is undertaking that initiative, and it is built for everybody to use, and they can plug that application into their own applications and make it use. The biggest example is UPI. UPI is one of the most influential digital public infrastructure developed by our Indian government, and by NPCI basically, and by Indian government therefore. So what is that? Basically, UPI is a payment gateway, payment infrastructure that facilitates transfer of funds from our bank accounts to another, and from our bank account to other bank accounts to mobile number, etc. So the single reason why a lot of payment applications like the Google Pay or Phone Pay has gather popularity is because they are using UPI. They themselves doesn't own UPI. You might have seen that. Up until you start paying or start to the payment page, you are directed to a single page irrespective of the application. A simple UPI page appears. That's from then on, everything is digital public infrastructure, and that is not at all under Google's or PhonePe or any other company's control. It's entirely under government's control. So that's one thing, and that's one of the most influential digital public good government has introduced. So this is basically it. Digital public goods are the digital goods and platforms openly accessible for public benefit, just like roads and street lights in digital platform. And they are based on this open source digital platform. Okay, that's the basic idea. And Aadhaar is a digital identity layer. See, these are the major digital public infrastructure in India. Quote these as examples. Of course, UPSC will be asking directly also. Just like this question, which of the following are built on top of open source digital platform? The same way UPSC could be asking which among the following are digital public goods. So remember these examples: Aadhaar, UPI, DigiLocker, Aadhaar e-sign, Ayushman Digital Bharat health data. That is also a digital public good. CoWIN, open network for digital commerce. This is very important in the upcoming years because this is expected to revolutionize our e-commerce sector and logistics sector. So this is one important thing, and that is also a digital public infrastructure. Then GST network is also a digital public infrastructure. So that's basically it. Learn about this because this is very important. India has been strongly pushing for it, and especially in the 2023 G20 presidency, India has explicitly mentioned that digital public infrastructure is going to play a key role in the development of the nations going ahead, especially the developing ones. Moving on. With reference to Web 3.0, consider the following statements. We can approach this question logically and arrive at the answer. No issues with that. First of all, given Web 3.0, meaning that it should be something new. We won't be given, assuming we are in Web 2.0, Web 3.0 meaning something that is new. And most likely if something with a version name is given, most likely it will be a newer thing only. So something new will be more advanced, more egalitarian. That's the kind of thing we are seeing. Or more reflective of the general trend regarding that domain. So Web 3.0, what is the general trend in web? Or what is the general direction in the web? That people are pushing for more privacy, more control over their data, and more security. So that's the basic idea. So current web lacks these, and the newer web, whatever that is coming up as Web 3.0, should be having privacy, security, as well as democratization. So these things should be there. So first statement, Web 3.0 technology enables people to control their own data. Yeah. That is called what? Data sovereignty, or control over data privacy. So that's a right statement. In Web 3.0 world, there can be blockchain based social networks. Quite possible, because blockchain is a very efficient technology and very advanced technology to balance between decentralization as well as ensuring security. Blockchain is relevant in that aspect. The core advantage of blockchain is that it balances decentralization as well as security. Usually, if something is decentralized, it tends to be less secure, but not in the case of blockchain. The decentralization of the blockchain itself is making it the most secure form of encryption as well as data control and data transfer. So this again is true. Then Web 3.0 is operated by users collectively rather than a corporation. Yeah, data democratization. This is also an important thing. And these three encompasses the whole philosophy of Web 3.0. So all the three statements are right. Answer is D. That is it. The logic I have used is very simple. That Web 3.0 meaning that it's a newer version. Generally, it will be newer version. UPSC won't be asking about something that is old. The UPSC will be asking about something that is going to happen, or it is an advanced version of something. So advanced version of something will be having newer and better things, and that will be reflective of the current demands in that particular sector. And the current demands I have based on as privacy, security, sovereignty, and all of these things are reflected in these statements. And also, if at all UPSC has given that in Web 3.0 world there will only be blockchain based social networks, if such a statement is given, then it will be wrong. It is saying that there can be, because blockchain alone is not enough, and blockchain is not a very versatile technology for use across the sectors. Though it has got a wide range of applications, not everything needs to be based on blockchain. And I assume that you know what is blockchain. If you don't know, it's fine. We'll be discussing about those core concepts in the upcoming sessions on very specific terms or specific concepts on each and every terms in the science and tech, polity, economy and environment. So don't worry about that. We'll be discussing about that in a very simple fashion. Moving on, with reference to software as a service. Somebody who is not from a very technical background can miss this, and it is fine. Even if you find this very difficult and very technical, and if you cannot answer this question, or if you find it very dicey, it's okay to leave this question. But I'm telling you, this is very much doable with logic. SaaS buyers, software as a service. Okay, SaaS buyers can customize the user interface and change data field. Okay, SaaS users can access their data through mobile devices. Okay, Outlook, Hotmail, Yahoo, Mail are forms of SaaS. Okay, three statements are given. Assuming, if you try to deconstruct the word software as a service, and Hotmail, Yahoo, everything is just like a software that is given as a service to us, right? We can email it without having to save or anything in our computer. We can just directly log in and do our thing. So that's basically software as a service. So Outlook, Hotmail, Yahoo Mail are forms of SaaS. That makes sense from the name itself. Okay, and meaning that things like Outlook, Hotmail, Yahoo are forms of SaaS is a sensible statement. Based on that, we know that these emailing platforms are SaaS. Okay. And based on that knowledge that we have acquired from the third statement itself, we can move on to the second statement. SaaS users can access their data through their mobile devices. Can they? Of course, we can access our Gmail, Yahoo Mail, etc. From our mobile devices. Again, that makes sense. SaaS buyers can customize the user interface and change the data field. Obviously, it's us who is determining what to send, whom to send, when to send, etc. So they can very definitely change the data field. So based on this third statement, because we know that software as a service and Outlook, Hotmail, Yahoo are all, they are softwares as service. From that logic, we have built upon, we have solidified that this should be a right statement. And from that logic, we are testing it with the second statement. That also makes sense. And the first statement is also tested against the third statement. Again, that also makes sense. Meaning that all three should be right, given 3 is right. And one more thing is there. If there is an option like none, then that could also be likely very true. Because we have based our entire logic based on the third statement, and we have tested it against tested 1 and 2 against 3. And if everything if everything comes up right, then the only option is that either all 3 should be right or none should be right. Okay, this is the core logic. But in this particular question, there is no none. And also the question is about software as a service, and everything is making sense. So we take D. The reason why I purposefully said that testing a statement against another from the question itself can yield you 2 possibilities. If all 3 it should be all 3 or only 2, or all 3 or none. Okay, that's the basic idea. And in this case, it's all 3. I hope you understood that logic. There is nothing complicated on that. I'm just telling you how the logic should work, the flow of the logic. So that's it. Nothing complicated here. Software as a service are basically the services that we use, like the Gmail or WhatsApp or things like that, where we can actually use that thing without actually installing it, and we can customize our data field. I'll explain it a bit, so it's worth knowing. It's not that relevant. UPSC won't be repeating this question, but given the UPSC strength, they can simply throw in this question, and you shouldn't be at a loss. So software as a service is a software delivery model where you use applications over internet instead of installing them on your computer. Very much like, earlier we used to, for example, applications like Photoshop. In order to exploit the full potential of the Photoshop, you need to be installing it. That's not a software as a service. But emailing platforms, Google Docs, things like that, they are just providing a service over internet. You don't have to install anything, and that's basically their software as a service through the internet. Netflix is also a good example. So it's not just about productivity applications, the gaming application, etc. are included in this software as a service platform. So these are the examples: these Shopify, Canva, Slack, Dropbox, Salesforce, Microsoft 360, Office tools on cloud, okay, not the one that we installed, and Zoom, etc. are all software as a service. So that's about it. Easy. That's all. You log into the software, the provider runs and maintains it. That's the basic idea. That, assuming if it's opposite to a software that you yourself developed. If you develop a software, you have to run it, you have to maintain it. For example, if you have developed a mailing solution by your own, you need to install it, run it, set up, then host it, things like that. But in this scenario, all you have to do is just log in, use their service. They may charge a fee depending on their business model, but that's basically how it works. That doesn't mean that all SaaS software are free. No, Salesforce and Microsoft 360 are not free. The Zoom Enterprise is also not free. So these are not necessarily free. Okay, that's one more thing you need to be knowing. Most of them might be free, but not all are free. Again, this is strictly logical. There is no knowledge, applied here, because I didn't know anything about this, and I guess most of the aspirants back then also didn't know anything about it. I think I've discussed this question earlier also. It's fractional orbital bombardment system. Which among the following statements best reflects the idea behind the fractional orbital bombardment system? So we need to be deconstructing the keyword fractional orbit bombardment. Okay, fractional orbital bombardment system. So meaning that the orbit is fractional, not a complete orbit, or something orbiting and halfway the orbit is broken. Then there is bombardment. Some sort of bombardment is happening. That could mean that explosion or injection into another orbit, something of that sort. So a bombardment, explosion is there. Then orbit that is not full, a halfway orbit, that is called the fractional orbit, is there. So we need to be looking for that. A hypersonic missile. Okay, that has got the bombardment part cleared. Launched into the space to counter the asteroid approaching Earth and explode it in space. There is bombardment. The whole thing ticks the bombardment part of the statement. But where is this fractional and even the orbital part? If you are launching a hyper missile, there won't be any orbit or anything. It will be just going and hitting the asteroid, approaching the Earth. So there is no orbit involved here. So the first statement doesn't have orbit. So makes for a lesser case. But since in questions like this, we cannot instantly eliminate it. We can just keep it aside. Moving on, second one. A spacecraft lands on another planet after making several orbital motions. Okay, several orbital motions. The orbit part of the keyword is ticked in this second one. But where is this bombardment happening? It's a spacecraft, not a missile. So where is this bombardment happening? So again, that doesn't completely explain the keyword. A missile is put into a stable orbit around the Earth and deorbits over a target on Earth. Since it's a missile, the bombardment part is taken care of. That is there. Put into a stable orbit, okay, and deorbits over a target on Earth. Meaning that, okay, it deorbits, stable orbit, and deorbits. Meaning that it doesn't necessarily completes the orbit and it deorbits. Meaning that the orbit is not full and most likely it will be fractional. This ticks both of the keywords. But wait, we have to go through the fourth statement as well. A spacecraft moves along a comet with the same speed and places a probe on its surface. Where is the bombardment part and where is the orbiting part? Comet doesn't necessarily have an orbit. They might be moving in straight lines. So there is no orbit, there is no bombardment. So D is gone. Spacecraft has got no bombardment, so that is gone. Hypersonic missile is launched into space to counter asteroid. No orbit is there. The only option where it ticks the boxes of orbit, fractional orbit, and bombardment is C, because it's a missile, there will be bombardment happening. Stable orbit, orbiting is happening, and deorbiting. Since there is deorbiting, there is fractional orbit, meaning that anyway along the orbiting it will be deorbiting without completing the orbit or midway. So there will be a fractional orbit happening. So C is the answer. This is how you decipher entirely based on logic. See, there is no knowledge used here. All we have looked for is bombardment, whether it's a missile, spacecraft, missile, and the orbit thing. Testing against that, we could arrive at an answer much easily. And this is how UPSC is going to ask most of the questions, especially statement-based questions like these. UPSC will be giving something totally out of the box, and they are testing your skills at deciphering these words. It's not just about your knowledge. I think very few might have cracked this one based on knowledge, but most of the aspirants who have cracked this will be using the same logic like I have said, and will be entirely based on logic itself. So this is how logic works, and this can actually help you attend or push your limits to for another 10 questions and actually answer the questions more than what you are used to do. So this is exactly what we do at Gallant IAS through our Gallant test. So follow our Gallant test for more insights on this matter. Just like this UPSC buffet, we have a team who are entirely crafting your preparation based on your level of knowledge and as well as your capability of logic. So we'll be supplying you with the logic as well as the knowledge needed to best prepare for this examination, whether it be prelims or mains. So stay tuned to Gallant IAS and don't forget to take a look at the Gallant test. Okay, moving on. Which one of the following is the context in which qubit is mentioned? You know that. I think this is rather very common, especially these days. You are commonly hearing about this qubit. Qubit meaning a half a bit or a quantum bit. So that's basically qubit. From the name itself, you can see that it's quantum bit. So what could quantum bit be dealing with? It's dealing with quantum computing only. So direct answer. That's it. So what's the difference between a qubit and a normal bit? And you have to learn something about quantum computing, because recently, as with any advanced technology, government is pushing for that development and their indigenous development. So AI, then these generative pre-trained transformers, GPTs, then semiconductors and these quantum computing are all new and cutting edge technology, blockchain technology. So these are all very cutting edge technologies, and you need to be knowing something about it. UPSC have asked very basic question about this, but UPSC could be asking something deeper also. How exactly this works? What are the issues with this? So that's worth looking into, and I have added the material here. So we'll take a look. So what is a quantum computing? Basically, normal computing uses binary or Boolean operations, but in quantum computing, it uses quantum mechanics. That's an entirely different and a groundbreaking method in computer science. So usually up until now we have been using storing data in forms of ones and zeros that we know. It's called binary logic. But the classical computers store data as ones and zeros in their flip-flops, and that has been stored as data, and operations are performed on these ones and zeros. But in quantum computing they uses qubits, because qubit is it's a very interesting thing. So how this qubit works is also very very magical, because it's like in bit-like system, either it can be like the switch. They are like a switch. In a single bit there will be a switch, whether it will be on or off. But in quantum computing they can have three states. Either the switch could be off or on, and it could be on and off. I know it sounds very magical, but that's how this quantum computing works, and it's kind of a dark magic in physics and computer science. You don't need to know much about it. Qubits are unlike the normal bits where there is only two states or two stable states like 0 and 1. But here they can be 0 and 1 at the same time. And what facilitates this sort of an operation is because of the major quantum principles. This is important. What is quantum superposition? A qubit can be 0 and 1 at the same time. So this is the idea. See, having a qubit helps you store more information at a lesser scale. I mean, in a lesser space. That's the basic idea. So that's what qubit does, because one bit can store only one single information, that whether it's A or whether it's on or off. But qubit can store 3 times more information or 2 times more information. That's almost halving the number of bits needed, and the entire operation might be reduced from half or 1/4 or like at a million scale. So that's the basic idea, and the fundamental thing that allows is superposition, because a qubit can be at 0 or 1, and this superposition or the combined state is called superposition. This is one of the key principles of quantum mechanics that is being used in quantum computing. Then quantum entanglement means that these qubits can be interconnected. Changing one affects the other. So this is another thing. Even though they are far apart, these bits are physically far apart, change in one can affect the other. Again, a magical stuff, but not really magic. There is proper explanation for that, I'm just saying. Then quantum interferences. So when correct answers are strengthened, wrong ones are cancelled out. This is basically the algorithm behind it. If the output required for whatever the output we are needed, and we are actually selecting from these bits. That's how this computer works. You don't have to go to the details. So they work by correcting the ones or strengthening the bits that are needed, and wrong ones are cancelling out. Again, there is an operation and algorithm going on. Basically, you need to be remembering about quantum interference, quantum entanglement, and quantum superposition. And I hope you understood what is superposition. Having both states together. Entanglement means one affecting the other. Quantum interference meaning the current ones are strengthened and the wrong ones are cancelled out. That's the basic principle. I'm reiterating this because in 2025, UPSC have asked about Majorana 1 chip, which is a chip developed by Microsoft, and UPSC has given us Amazon Web Services. So since UPSC have asked about a chip, that's the significance of Majorana is that it's the most advanced quantum computer, and it is very immune to external noises. That's the major advantage of Majorana developed by Microsoft. Though the details are not being asked, the question about Majorana was being asked, and eliminating that particular option, as Majorana was developed by Amazon, it was given as Majorana was developed by Amazon. Eliminating that option, if you know that it was not by Amazon and by Microsoft, could easily give you the answer. It was asked in 2025. So such a things can be expected more, because UPSC could be asking like, why shouldn't these aspirants be knowing about superposition, entanglement, quantum interference, because this is kind of the cutting edge technologies, and aspirants or officers, future officers should be aware of these kind of things. So UPSC could be asking this. You don't have to go into any detail more than this. The kind of information I am presenting to you is in a very simple fashion and at a level where UPSC is maximum going to go. If you are going beyond this, you might be at a loss, because you might be forgetting things and you might be overcomplicating things. All this much information is needed to solve the question and get a basic understanding. Okay, and that's about it. And learn few things, because this is a very potential question. Why are quantum computers not used widely, or what are the limiting factors? So they are extremely fragile. That's the basic issue, because these computers operate at sub-zero or near zero, absolute zero temperature. I'm saying at minus 273 degrees Celsius. They are operating at that temperature. Then only these quantum applications or quantum operations can be performed. So such a setting itself is very much limiting, because we need to have a strong temperature control, and that's very important. Then error prone. Due to this decoherence effect, there is high degree of error proneness, because qubits store information, the quantum entanglement, quantum interference, such things happen. The data stored in these computers can easily be corrupted by external noises. Noises as in, anything can be a noise in that setting. So a very pristine, very closed, as well as very temperature controlled setting is needed for this quantum computer to operate. That's why we don't see them in consumer products yet. Going forward, that might be possible, because back then, our laptops and computer, like the precursor to the computers, were like as big as a TV, like as big as a room. Similarly, things can get smaller and In future, we will be having quantum computers in our palm. So very costly, obviously, and not useful for everyday task yet. Yeah, this is not useful for everyday task yet. Imagine quantum. You might have think about quantum computers as something like an aircraft, where the normal computer is like a car or a very fast car. It's not really like that. The best analogy for quantum computer, if you ask me, will be like they are like a they are like a vehicle that can travel in land, water, as well as air, but they are not good at any of these single-handedly. That's the basic idea. They cannot outperform a car in land, they cannot outperform a boat in water, they cannot outperform an aircraft in flight, but they can do all these three together. And this capability, I mean, this is of course an analogy, this capability facilitates them to do certain things that are not possible by the conventional computers. So that's the basic analogy. Just remember that. Okay, that's how the quantum computers are different from the other conventional computers. Then the major ones: Condor by IBM, Sycamore by Google. Remember, this is very potential question next year also. UPSC can be giving us these examples and match the following. Very difficult. So you need to be knowing few things. Sycamore will be it's a very potential question. D-wave advantage, Intel's tunnel faults. Okay, tunnel faults by Intel, and China has got developed this particular one. Then Majorana, very important. Majorana is so far one of the most potent as well as the most error prone. See, error prone chip developed by Microsoft. So that's about it. Moving on. Consider the following communication technologies. Which of the following are considered as short range devices? Meaning that from the name itself we can say that they are short range. Okay, very unlike our mobile signals, which are long range. We can call anybody across the state or a country or even the world. So that's a very long range technology. So what would be a short range technology? Closed circuit television, CCTVs. Are they short range? Yeah, obviously they are short range. They are meant to guard a certain small area. That's it. Of course, we can air it through internet, and we can watch it from anywhere, but that's not basically the idea. The technology of closed circuit television is that it's short range only. The entire system is confined to a shorter area, but when connected to internet, it has got capability. That's it. The standalone system, they are asking actually about the standalone system. Then RFID, of course, short range. The RFID tags that we used for payment or the fast tags, they are all short range, because you need to be at a certain range so that the receiver can actually read the signals, just like that what you do in the fast tag at toll gates. So RFID is also a short range. Wireless local area network, WLAN, Wi-Fi is of course short range. All of you might know how short range Wi-Fi's are. Just moving beyond the limits of 20 meters or 30 meters, you won't be getting any Wi-Fi. So that's basically it. So all three are short range communication devices. Don't confuse CCTVs with the capability to be connected to the internet and we can be controlling that. That's not the standalone system. Anything can be connected to the internet and we can make it long range or something like that. But that's not the standalone system that they are asking. They are asking about the normal system only. Okay, so it's basically it. 36D. Moving on, biofilms. This is something that nobody has heard about up until now. At least I think that's what I believe, because I haven't heard about anything about biofilms up until now. So we'll be trying to picturize it, then we'll be analyzing it based on that picture, comparing it with the statements. So biofilms. Okay, a film-like structure formed of biological or organic material. Okay, that would be biofilm. Okay, it can be comprising of anything. The first impression I'd be having is that given the state of film, something like a thin layer of algae, something like appearance like algae, but it could be comprised of any organic material, organic or living material. So biofilms can form on medical implants within human tissues. Yeah, don't you think that is possible? Films could be formed and on medical implants. It's possible only. There is no particular reason to doubt it, and it is also saying that can form. Yeah, there is a potential for that. There is possibility for that. That is true. Biofilms can form on food and food processing surfaces. See, we are seeing these mold and all everything forming in the food surfaces when it gets bad, and I think that themselves are also a part of biofilm, if I am not wrong. So again, that's true. biofilms can exhibit antibiotic resistance. Yeah, given the kind of given the kind of biofilm that is been formed, if it's formed by a bacteria that is very much having a resistance, then it is also possible. Again, all three statements make sense, and since it's given like a very canned statement, and obviously the burden of proof is less, and it's right only. There is no reason to doubt any of these statements. So option D. It's as simple as that. You don't have to be overcomplicating it. It's basic idea. Biofilm. Just imagine just picturize it, what it could be, and that's it. Then moving on, probiotics. Okay, everybody is nowadays very much obsessed with probiotics for the gut health and everything. So this is very common term for everybody. Probiotics are made of both bacteria and yeast. Okay, yeah, they are made of both bacteria and yeast. Okay, the organisms in probiotics are found in foods we ingest, but they do not naturally occur in our gut. Is it so? Of course, the food that we consume does have probiotics, like the yogurt or the curd or anything like that. The fermented drinks, etc., will have some sort of probiotics in them. That is true only. But probiotics are needed by our gut. The good gut bacteria are probiotics only, which are naturally found in our gut to help aid in the digestion. So that is not true. They are naturally found in our gut. Also, they are found outside, and when this balance is stripped, we are actually required to intake more probiotics to restore the gut bacteria. So that's true only. This is wrong only actually, because they are found naturally in our gut. That is true. They are actually naturally found in our gut, meaning this is wrong. Probiotics helps in digestion of milk sugars. Of course, that's one important thing, because some people will have difficulty in digestion of milk sugars, and probiotics can help with that. Basically, probiotics aids digestion by improving the gut health and the good gut bacteria. You might have heard about good gut bacteria and all, and they are all probiotics. Okay, and the kind of sugars that these probiotic bacteria or yeast feed on are called prebiotics, and that could be grains, other sugars, etc. So the food for these probiotic bacteria or yeast are called prebiotics, and that includes grains, etc. So this is true. This is wrong. So 2 is gone, and we are left with probiotics are made of. We are left with A and C, and A is right only. The good gut bacteria. So it's true only. Yeast, yeah, obviously. So 38 C. So that's the basic idea. We have arrived at the answer. And the yeast, you know that fermentation produces probiotics. Okay, understand that. The drinks like kombucha, tepache, they all are good for our gut because they are based on yeast and they are fermented. So yeast and bacteria are probiotics. So this is wrong. They are naturally found in our gut. So answer is C. That's it. Moving on. Non-fungible tokens. This is something very important and worth looking into. Not many know how this actually works. The name itself meaning that non-fungible, meaning that it cannot be traded for an equal value. I hope you understand that. Not being able to trade for an equal value, meaning that if you have a 100 rupee note and you can trade it for something value having a value as much as 100 rupee. But once you buy that thing, you cannot necessarily trade it for another 100 rupee, because that thing doesn't really hold as much as value, and its value fluctuates. So the kind of thing, the kind of purchase you have made, whether it be a cloth or anything, with that 100 rupee no longer is equivalent to the 100 rupee. It's not fungible again. You can only barter it. The bartering can, the issue is that bartering won't be having an equal value transfer. So that's the issue. So fungibility meaning that ability to transfer for equal value. So 100 rupee note or equivalent of dollars can be exchanged. So there is no value loss or value increase or anything. They are basically exchanged at proper values. Such a thing is not possible in these NFTs. From the name itself, I'm not saying anything outside of it. It's from the name itself. Non-fungible tokens. They enable digital representation of physical assets. Okay. That's basically tokens. Since tokens are given, tokenization meaning that digital representation of physical assets. That's true. Then they are unique cryptographic tokens that exist on a blockchain. Yeah, maybe. Assuming you don't know, maybe. They can be traded or exchanged at equivalency and therefore can be used as a medium of commercial transaction. Can they? This is exactly the reason why they are called non-fungible. Non-fungible meaning that they cannot be used for this exact purpose. So the third statement is wrong. So when 3 is gone, we are having the answer as A. So that's basically it. It's very easy. Non-fungible tokens are like, the basic thing is that if you own a picture, like example, picture of Mona Lisa, and that has been transformed as a token, it has been tokenized, and the ownership of the entire Mona Lisa has been tokenized into so many digital tokens. So you can purchase that token, meaning that you own a piece of that painting. You can own a piece of that, and imagine the piece. Assuming the value of that thing, the piece can cost, a single unit can cost, somewhere up to, somewhere between the lines of $100 to $1,000. Okay, if that is being broken down, that tokenized into much smaller pieces. So the reason why such a thing is being done is because of that. It's not exactly applicable in the case of Mona Lisa, but in case of a famous painting, if nobody is buying that or somebody is owning that painting and they want to make profit out of it, so they can just tokenize it. In order to protect the value or increase the value, they can tokenize it, and others like you and me can invest in that as a small amount, just like investing in a stock exchange. You can invest in that. The good thing is that the value of such products, like these artistic products, doesn't necessarily go down. They tend to go up only. Very unlike our market scenario, stock prices or mutual funds, they doesn't necessarily go down. But the issue with that is, kind of token you are getting a part of that picture. So there is no tradability happening. You cannot just easily trade it, just like a stock, because there is no real value. The value is always been, it's a floating value. So that's the issue, and that's how you own it. So that is called tokenization, breaking down a physical asset into digital assets, digital tokens, and basically for the purpose of ownership or storage. And these tokens are actually based on blockchains. See, you can imagine why it is been using blockchain, because in order to prevent any discrepancy, corruption, things like that, they will be using cryptographic blockchains, tokens, and using the system of blockchains. You can know that, like, if such a picture is being distributed into 1 lakh tokens, and who knows who all owns these tokens, and to ensure that everything is transparent, there could be a blockchain system for delivery of that tokens. We'll learn few things about these non-fungible tokens. They are unique digital certificate of ownership stored on a blockchain, just like I have said, and each NFT is one of a kind and cannot be replaced by another identical item. That's the issue. They are not fungible. They are one of a kind. They hold a value. So you can exchange it for a value, or you can trade it for a value, but you cannot trade it for another token. That's the issue, because no one token is having the same value as the other token. Even from the same painting itself, the value will be different. So 100 rupee note we can interchange, but at the same time, this is a good example. Bat signed by MS Dhoni, it's unique. It's not fungible, but it does have value. So can I exchange that thing for something else? No, not possible. If I can exchange MS Dhoni's watch for a SUV, a 20 lakh XUV, is it possible? It is possible, but it's not a market dynamics. It's very personal, and it depends upon the the exchange, the conditions between the seller and the buyer. So it's not very fungible by its nature. Okay, like that. So NFTs are common use for digital art, game characters and weapons, music albums, virtual land, and event tickets. So these are used in these are the major areas where NFTs are used. So that's about it. Learn about it. Simple concept. Having an idea helps. These are actually a good way to diversify your portfolio. Most of the people are looking for alternative investment options, because in this day and age, gold is becoming too expensive to buy at a first place. So people are looking for other investment avenues where these historical artistic paintings can be bought through NFTs. We cannot buy a single picture of artwork, but we can buy a part of it, and that remains as an investment. And over years, the value can get skyrocketed, and we can actually make a profit out of it. So this is also worth looking into. DNA barcoding. This this is slightly difficult, but it's very doable with the logic. If you haven't heard about DNA barcoding, this is something people might have come across, but I didn't know that. I used entire logic based on and I solved this question based entirely on logic. So the first statement: assess the age of plant or animal. DNA barcoding seems like a possible thing. Okay, we might be able to assess the age of plant or animal, maybe. Distinguish among species that look alike. Oh, okay. having the DNA of those species and barcoding them, we can do that. Okay, that seems very possible. Identify undesirable animal or plant materials in processed food. Again, that is also possible. We can check for animal or plant DNA in this processed food, and that's how it works. And 2 and 3 are very much alike, so 2 and 3 make sense. They should be right together. For me, at first sight, thought that okay, all 3 are right, but looking at the option, there is no such thing. All 3 doesn't make sense. Then the second thing was that 2 and 3 are right only, and I'm looking for 2 and 3. That option also exists, meaning that this should be the right answer. See, this is the one area where I was wrong. My assessment was wrong because I took a very positive approach. But the UPSC was very clever to give options like this, because they knew aspirants can make this mistake, but they wanted to know that, which all aspirants knew that these two things are connected. So this is how UPSC works. UPSC expects you to know few things. That is, these two things are connected and you should be taking these two things right only. See, there is a 3 only option also. So this is up to you to choose between this 3 only and think that no, it's not just 3 only, it's 2 also with the 3. And UPSC has carefully not given all 3 as an option. So again, worth looking into. This is how UPSC sets the question. That's exactly what they are testing. So even my bad assumption on this thing didn't really cost me anything, because the logic was very much consistent, and UPSC has been specifically looking for this connection, and which I was able to make. This is how logic rewards you, because UPSC will be testing not everything from you, some certain logic. This is what UPSC was testing. You're understanding that 2 and 3 are like very interconnected scenarios, and they should be right together. So 2 and 3, and we arrive at an answer as D. So that's about it. And then moving on, next one, B and T cells. Again, this is in 2022, COVID pandemic, everything is there, and cytokine storm syndrome and things like that. Guillain-Barré syndrome, cytokine storm syndrome, and things like the things I forgot the name. The cytokine storm syndrome occurs when our immune system rapidly attacks our own body parts, assuming that body organs, assuming that they are foreign or infectious organs or materials or compounds. So that's what happens in cytokine storm syndrome. These are all immuno syndromes. Okay, so B and T cells are very much in line with that question. I mean, that's phenomena where these are the ones responsible for fighting the pathogens. Okay, they are not immunosuppressants. They are, in fact, it's the opposite. So they are the ones that are fighting the diseases caused by the pathogen. This was very much in news back then. Okay, that's how I came to know about it. Especially post-COVID scenario, many people have had this cytokine storm syndrome, where their immune body, these B and T cells, are unable to identify their own body parts, and they tend to attack it. So then we administer steroids as immunosuppressants to reduce the activity of B and T cells, and then slowly recover that patient. So immunosuppressants are used against the B and T cells. Like, not normal scenario, when these cells misfire, or they actually misunderstand our body and attack our body, when starts attacking our own body, these immunosuppressants in the form of steroids are administered. Just understand that. And we'll look at little bit into B and T cells. It's worth looking into. So the B and T cells are white blood cells, and they are part of our immune system and helps body recognize, remember, and fight specific infections. I'll give you an analogy. This way you can easily remember. B cells are like the weapon makers, and T cells are like the army commanders and soldiers. So they are the ones doing the thing, and B cells make the tools for them. Okay, the tool here is antibodies. So B cells make the antibodies, T cells use these antibodies, and they both form the part of white blood cells. And B cells make the antibodies. Like I said, antibodies are the ones that are being used to fight a specific infection based on the information that B cell gets. Okay, B cell has gotten information that a particular virus is entering, and they are profiling that virus based on that. Okay, these viruses have these sort of structures, so I'll make a specific antibody for that to fight it. So the reason why they are making specific antibody is that we cannot make any random antibody, because it can destroy our useful or functional parts of our organs. So the antibodies will be very specific and based on the kind of pathogen that is entering our body. So B cells do that. So they stick to the germ like a lock and key and marking them for destruction. So they remember the germ, this is how this memory helps. B cells has got this memory, and this is exactly what this inactivated vector vaccine does. They actually trick the body into thinking that there is an actual infection, and this makes the B cells to make the antibody, and it remembers it. So next time if you get the infection, it will be able to fight it very clearly. So this is how the inactivated vector vaccines work. So this is the basic idea. And T cells are the ones, actually they don't make antibodies. They actually they are like the generals. They are actually doing the fighting work, and they are helper cells. The CD4, CD8, they are all T cells, and the regulatory T cells prevent overreaction, stop autoimmune diseases. See, these are all very relevant in the case of autoimmune diseases, because when these B and T cells doesn't when their assessment and their operations go out of control, we end up in an autoimmune disease. And a lot of autoimmune disease, we know that the recent one was like Guillain-Barré syndrome in Maharashtra, and it was triggered by diarrhea, and post that the body recovers, but the body or the B and T cell starts attacking our own human system, like the gut, the lungs, etc. So autoimmune diseases are very much of a threat, especially in the aftermath of an infection or over a vaccine. So in order to control that, we administer immunosuppressants in the form of steroids. So that's basically it. These are B and T cells, and that's about it. And one more thing. Other than those made by humans, nanoparticles do not exist in nature. Imagine this nature. There exist all sorts of particles, grinding of particles, weathering, microfracturing, everything is happening. So is it possible for the nature to not have a nanoparticle? This seems extremely unlikely. The nature will be having particles much smaller than that, or particles at a scale that we are yet to identify. So this seems like next to impossible. So first statement is wrong. Nanoparticles of some metallic oxides are used in the manufacturing of some cosmetics. Maybe cosmetics does use metallic oxides, and nanoparticles could be used. Yeah, nanoparticles of some commercial products which enter environment are unsafe for humans. Yeah, nanoparticles due to their size can enter our bloodstream. That can have an adverse impact. So statement 1 is wrong. 2 and 3 makes perfect sense. So answer is D. This is a very straightforward and direct question. Nothing more. And there is no particular takeaway from this. Just have an idea that nanoparticles do not exist in nature. Any size, any sort of particle, big and small, can exist in nature, and there are particles that are yet to be discovered by us. So that is wrong. So that's about it. So I hope our discussion was fruitful for you. So follow these things, especially the DPI, B and T cells, these sort of things I am telling you. To go into that, you don't have to go into the particular details. That's why I've specifically limited the kind of information I'm sharing with you. So you don't have to go into the details, and having that particular information and applying your logic will give you the right answer. You won't be having a difficulty in solving the question. Ultimately, it's all about solving the question. So put your energy into solving the question rather than learning new things. The master at solving question can easily get past the prelims, and master at answer writing can easily get past the mains. So be a master at both. Okay. Thank you and see you soon.